My name is Walter Meheula Heen.
You're the former judge?
Yes, I was the first director of the Office of Mauna Kea Management under contract with the University of Hawaii at Hilo. The Office of Mauna Kea Management was established in response to a number of public hearings that were held throughout the island of Hawaii regarding the telescopes on Mauna Kea, astronomy activity on Mauna Kea. Subsequently, I left the Office of Mauna Kea Management, then became an elected trustee of the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. We met and discussed the proposed telescope on Mauna Kea, the 60-meter telescope, and adopted a resolution in support of the office or the observatory on Mauna Kea.
Do you know if the university has an expectation of exclusivity enough to close the road? I should say close the road to the public.
I can only say that, in my opinion, the jurisdiction of the road is within the University of Hawaii. And it would seem to me that that would carry the authority to close the road in certain circumstances.
And what is that based on? Is there a document that...
Based on the top of my head.
While OMKM's activities have been designed to protect Mauna Kea from uncontrolled and unwarranted intrusion and to preserve Native Hawaiian traditional and customary rights, that such intrusions and violations continue to take place on the mountain. Do you know if these intrusions and problems continue to this day and they haven't been solved?
I can suppose that they do continue to this very day.
Thank you.
I assume you're stating it correctly. I don't know, but I'm assuming that they are.
Is it fair to say that OMKM's primary duty would be its obligation or its duty to the University of Hawaii, and then its secondary duty might be, as part of its secondary duty, in fact, be to protect Native Hawaiian access?
No, I think that's a bit strong.
Okay.
When we started the Office of Mauna Kea Management, I was, quite frankly, most interested in curbing the authority of the observatories and their operation on the mountain. They had to understand that they were not owning on the mountain, they were just lessees.
Do you know if Mauna Kea was once considered crown and government lands of the Hawaiian Kingdom?
I don't know.
In your capacity as a judge, wouldn't you have to know the foundations of the state of Hawaii?
When
Ambiguous.
When a specific issue would come before us, yeah.
I believe that title is an essential part of any kind of land transaction, including a lease. And therefore, and because it's fundamental, it requires address.
Even if I were to assume that what you say is correct, you still have to ask those questions of the right people at the right time. That is my point.
The advice that is produced by Kaukumana, or the Advisory Council, is that advice taken to heart and implemented within the Office of Mauna Kea Management?
Oh, very much so. Very much so.
Could you give me an example of that?
I'm sorry?
Could you give me an example of some advice?
No, I can't.
As a retired judge, lawyer, and former OHA trustee, you are aware of the state's trust obligation to protect and preserve Native Hawaiian customary and traditional rights. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. And you are aware that the proposed site of the TMT project is located on public trust lands?
Yes.
Do you yourself consider Mauna Kea sacred?
Do I myself consider? No.
Do you believe that other Native Hawaiians consider Mauna Kea sacred?
I don't know.
In your opinion, do you believe there will be a substantial adverse impact on the land on the proposed TMT site?
Same objection, lacks foundation.
Overruled.
I'll answer the question. I don't think so. I don't know. I don't know what the impact will be on the land.
So you don't believe that it will have the city?
I don't believe one way or the other.
Okay. Are you also aware that Native Hawaiians claim they will suffer an irreparable injury if the TMT is constructed?
I'm aware that that's their claim. I don't know that it's in fact.
Does it alarm you?
I'm sorry?
Does that alarm you?
Alarm me?
Yes.
Not particularly at this point because I don't know what, I have no knowledge of the details of their claims.
Do you recognize that the proposed site of TMT is a burial ground, sacred space, and place of worship?
I don't
Objection,
know.
compound, lacks foundation.
Well, I don't know the answer to that question.
Thank you.
I want to put up on the screen a document. The document is simply a setting out of Article 12, Section 7 of the Hawaii Constitution. Does this constitutional provision impose on the Office of Mauna Kea Management an obligation to regulate spiritual practices of Native Hawaiians?
I don't think it does.
Thank you. At the time the Office of Mauna Kea Management was established, was it envisioned that the Office of Mauna Kea Management would define what constituted appropriate spiritual practices on the mountain?
I don't believe so.
Was it envisioned that the Office of Mauna Kea Management would adopt regulations governing spiritual practices?
It wasn't discussed during the time I was there.
Was it envisioned that the Office of Mauna Kea Management would enforce regulations on spiritual practices?
I don't know. It wasn't discussed when I was there. So the answer to your question, I suppose, is no. It wasn't envisioned.
Was it envisioned, for example, that a spiritual practitioner would have to have a permit from the Office of Mauna Kea Management to build an altar on Mauna Kea?
I'd have to give you the same answer. I don't know because I don't recall it being discussed.
And you testified that you did not know if others believe Mauna Kea is sacred. Is that correct?
That's right.
On page 2 of your prepared testimony in the second paragraph, you state that there have been conflicts between, quote, Western, unquote, intrusions and preservation of the sacredness of Mauna Kea. What sacredness were you referring to?
That arises from the contentious hearings that took place before the establishment of the Office of Mauna Kea Management and the master plan.
So in those contentious hearings, there were people coming forward to say the mountain was sacred.
I don't recall that. I'm not sure that they said specifically the mountain was sacred, but there was certainly that implication.
I'm still trying to understand. You have put the word sacredness in your testimony.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, where did that come from?
Well, that came out of those hearings, those contentious hearings. People obviously said it was sacred.
Would you say that the preservation of the sacredness of the Mauna was part of the primary concerns of the office?
Well, I can only speak for, I don't know what the concern of the office is now. Whether it's a primary concern or whether it should be balanced by everything else that takes place on the mountain is the question that really has to be determined.
What did you mean by Western intrusions?
Western intrusions?
Yeah.
Almost everything.
Thank you. That's appreciated.
Did you take an oath of office, oath to the U.S. Constitution?
Yes.
Do you are you familiar with the U.S. Constitution?
To a degree, yeah.
Is the state of Hawaii one of the 13 states under Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3 of the U.S. Constitution?
Objection, irrelevant, outside the scope.
Where are we going with this?
You know where I'm heading to.
Okay.
I don't have to tell you.
I was hoping. So I need to sustain the objection. I'm sorry.
Is requiring a permit to erect sacred structure considered, this might be an argument. Would you consider that unrestricted access?
I don't think you can so broadly construe the term unrestricted access to include unrestricted activities on the mountain that might alter the terrain or the the native environment.